Good morning, good morning. Oh, well, here's my next episode. We're going to get started on what we need to do before we decide we're going to start growing any kind of plants. And I just want to first off preface this as saying this channel does not sell anything, have anything to sell, give away anything. Everything here is for research and educational purposes only. Now that the disclaimer's out of the way, let's get to going. And let me put out a shout out to my Toon family. You know who you are, and let's start growing this community with no mids. All right, first and utmost, considerations before growing. So let's lay this out. What all do we need to consider before growing? And I'm going to just kind of highlight it here. The biggest thing you need to consider is environment, whether it be inside, outside, where you live at has a lot to do with it, because your outside temperatures and humidities and barometric pressures from the outside environment, even from the outside of your house, will have impact on your growing conditions and how you will grow. And I can only speak for myself and for what I've started doing. And a little bit of background, I was a grower a very long time ago, 30 years ago. There, give or take some, and excuse me. There, give or take some, but had kids, quit growing, and it wasn't exactly allowed when I started. And for me, I was a kid, probably about 14, 13, 15, somewhere around in there. So what I used to do is I used to go fishing, but I'll explain the science behind it in a minute. But my story is that when I started, it was just good old bag seed, and I didn't nobody know, but there were some growers around that would grow some really good fire, and those were the bag seeds you wanted to try and find. And back then, everybody got bag seed because everything was grown outside and everything got pollinated. So it just depended on how much seed you got, but you almost guaranteed to get seed in every bag you got. So I used to go fishing before I would grow, and on my way down to the fishing pond, I would walk the creek out behind my backwoods where I grew up and find me a spot that would be a good spot for water drainage, where my plant could still get watered but not overwatered. And that's because of how the water level, you could tell in creeks and other places how the water level will rise and fall. Even though it's just a very small amount, you can still see that. So I used to go fishing, catch a fish. It didn't matter if it was a bass, brim, whatever. It was out the local pond, the neighborhood pond we had across the street from my house down in the woods. So I go over there, enjoy myself, take in some hippie calories, and do a little fishing. So catch my fish. Then we go back out to a spot that I had picked out. I dig a hole with my bare hands. It didn't have to be very deep, maybe a foot at the most, just depending on what kind of soil I was in and how close to the water supply I was and what kind of runoff there was for where I would be planting my plant. So Once I dug a hole, guess what? The fish got thrown in the hole. Guts, scales, everything got thrown in the hole. Covered the fish up with probably about 6 inches of soil, maybe 8, and would plant my plant and plant my seed, and then cover it the last little bit up. So why would I put a fish in the hole? Well, let's look at it. What's going to happen as that fish breaks down? Well, and back then there was no nutrients over the counter besides Miracle-Gro. I think Floraflex may have been out then, but I'm not 100% positive. But as far as being a kid, no way to go nowhere besides his bicycle. Guess what we did? We did it the backwoods way. That's what I'll call it, the redneck backwoods way. Cause I was in Georgia, and that's where the rednecks were. All right, so the reason I would throw the fish in is because I knew for some reason back then, even though I didn't know the science behind it until I got older, I knew that for whatever reason, as long as I checked on my plant about every 3 days and kept it quarantined off from any predators, rabbits, deer, squirrels, all kind, just about everything in the woods will eat your plants. So it has to be very well protected. So, the science behind that I learned that I was doing is that when I would throw that fish in the hole, cover it up, plant my seed, get everything nice and dandy, comfortable for the seed to start growing. There was no sprouting beforehand. It was sticking in the dirt and let it go, and you didn't come back for a few days because you just couldn't. There was no, you couldn't make continuous trips in and out. So I had to be as close as I could to be set and done. And so plant my seed beginning in the fall, in the winter, first of spring. And the fish would break down over the season, over the growing season. And as that fish breaks down, that encourages good microbes and organisms and earthworms and just all kind of good bacteria that's breaking down that fish, and it's actually making the fertilizer and the conditioning the soil to be good for the plant to uptake and have nutrients for it and everything. I used to do this in sandy area, and that was really my preferred area. Was a kind of a mix between black dirt, which is topsoil, which is good soil. You don't want to use red clay or anything like that. You want to use good soil, no matter what you're doing. Good soil. So I would prefer back then having a mix of sand and topsoil, and find my little happy place for my plant, bury my fish, plant my seed, go home. And there we are. We're not going back for about a week. And I would always, of course, put something with some kind of weight up over my plant. So, 9 times out of 10, it's going to get eaten. That's all there is to it. You just need to be ready for that. And it took me a little while to learn. I used to do all kind of little Boy Scout things like little traps around my plant that try to keep things away from my plant as much as best as I could. But yeah, once the fish starts breaking down, it creates the potassium, the bone meal, the nitrogen, all that stuff. It creates all that stuff. And the plant would eat it up and it would do very good. And once it got past a certain stage, and the soil was good enough, it just take off. And then, of course, them roots would find that fish along the way, and it would uptake that stuff while the fish was breaking down. And so that's how I learned how to grow. So I started back here not too long. Well, actually, let me pull it up so you can see, because I keep my records. And let me pull it over here so y'all can see how I track my stuff. Alright. I think this is going to be probably really small to y'all. Let me do this. Let's see if I can zoom this in. Alright. Let's see. Alright, it doesn't look like I can zoom this in. Or I just don't know how, which is most definitely the thing. Alright, so I got a Northern Dawn going right now from Greenhouse, a seed company. Why did I go with Greenhouse? Well, we'll get into that in the next episode. But I planted this Northern Dawn on 8/10 at 15:30. That's 3:30 in the afternoon. That's when I planted the seed. And then I carry on with exactly making my notes and everything day to day. Alright, so I just started back in August. And here we are, September, October, November. And if I wouldn't have vegged my plant for 2 months, I'd probably be ready to harvest. Alright, so considerations before we grow. First consideration, number one. This should always be the number one. Environment. Environmental conditions. Alright, so for me, my environmental conditions is I'm growing in my house. And so my environment is pretty stable. It stays at between 69 to 72, depending on the heat. Or right now, since we're in the changeover from fall to winter, it changes over from about 68 because I'm upstairs and it's warmer up here. So it goes from about 68 to 72. And my humidity stays about the same at around 55, 56, right around that area. My humidity doesn't change too much in the house. Now, another thing to consider is that I don't think a lot of people take into consideration is where you plan on putting your grow. And we're going on inside, since that's what I did when I started back. And if you the second consideration, I would say, it ain't even nothing to do with growing equipment. It ain't nothing to do with anything like that. We ain't got that yet. Baby steps, y'all. Baby steps. We just little sprouts right now. This is what I'm gonna do. So right now, we ain't even sprouted yet. We are still seeds in this, okay? We're gonna grow ourselves as the plant will grow itself as we go through the series. So right now we're just seeds. That's all we are, as a seed, okay? So and for our home, we want the best conditions that we can move into, right? Just like in being a person. I don't know anybody who wants to live in a bad, downtrodden area that's just overlooked by everybody and nothing's ever done for. Those aren't really good conditions for growing the human being. So it's also not good conditions for growing us as a seed. So now, what we want to, like I said, environmental conditions. What what is it like inside your house? What is it gonna be like outside your house? What time of year are you planting? And what time of year are you growing? What time of year are you gonna be harvesting? All your environment, inside and outside of the house, will come into play. It could be raining. It could be 100% humidity. It could be all kind of things. It could be a door got left open one night, or you got the windows open on the house. It throws your environmental conditions all over the place. So that's number one. Take a look at your environment that you're going to be growing in. Take a note of what the environmental conditions are like over time. Not just talking about a day or two. Let's go for a week or two, so you can get a good baseline on that environmental condition. Because that baseline that you get at this critical step is going to be what you build all of your rest of your growth off of. Okay, we got environmental conditions covered. What's going to be number two? Flooring type. Alright, for me, I'm on a plywood floor because I'm on my second story. I'm up in the warmest parts of my house, and I knew that would be the best option for me. Now, the flooring type that you want to make sure that you put some space between your floor and the bottom of whatever you're growing in, whether it be an open room or whatever. Concrete floors. Concrete floors. I don't know if you ever laid on one during the summer, but they're cool, and they stay cool, especially if it's your main level, because this is attached to the ground, right? And it's attached inside the ground. It goes down a couple of feet inside the ground, and that brings that coolness out of the ground up through the concrete, up through your footing, up through the rebar, into the concrete that you can walk, that you're walking on. And if you walk barefoot, or like me personally, I love laying on my concrete floors during the summer, and when I have arthritis real bad and bone spurs, and so when they get to aggravate me, I will lay on that floor because it's like a big ice pack. It's like a huge ice pack. So, and that's not very inducive for your plants to get going. If you plant your plants on a cold floor type, like concrete, it will mess with your seeds. It will mess with your plants too. Even if you germinate your seed in a cloner, in a humidity dome, however you germinate your seed, however you do it, in water, cotton towel method, cotton pad method. There's a million different ways to do it for a million different people. However you choose to do it, once you get that seed in your soil or in your growing medium, do not put it on the concrete floor. That's the worst thing you can do, because that you will be fighting it the whole time. The coolness of that concrete floor. And you gotta remember, night times, even during the summer, are cooler during the daytimes. There's only a short window during the summer where night times and daytime conditions and temperatures are about the same. And that's at that peak time in summer, when they stay about the same for them few weeks before they start dropping off going into fall. And that's what we're trying. That overall, that's our goal, is to mimic a spring through fall, early winter weather pattern. That's what you want to shoot for. Okay? So that means, as whatever, however you got your setup done, as time goes on, and your flowering's happening and it's going on, you want to start reducing them temps and that humidity a little bit. It's not very much. It's just a touch. And that's all it takes for that plant to trigger and go. Alright, so flooring type, you got to consider your flooring type. Like I said, I'm on my second story, so I'm on plywood. And if you're going to be on concrete, I would suggest you build you a little platform. Find you a little platform. Find some pallets. Throw your piece of plywood over on top of it. There's all you gotta do is put your little innovation into it, and that's where this whole growing came from after marijuana became illegal. It was the innovators who grew. It was the people who could go out, train their plants to run across the ground look like a strawberry patch until flower time. But if you didn't know what you was looking at, you could walk right through somebody's garden buried out in the woods, because everything was trained along the ground. Looked like wild strawberries growing in the ground, unless you knew what to look for. And those were very few and far between at that time. So, alright, flooring types covered. If you're on concrete, do yourself a favor. Put you at least 6 inches between you and that concrete. That 6 inches will save you headaches in your growth. It'll save you from chasing your tail, not thinking you got nutrient deficiencies or nutrient efficiencies where you're overnutriated, and that won't be the case. It'll be because your flooring is too cold and it's shocking that plant, and it can, in extreme cases, kill the plant. It'll stun it most of the time, but it all depends. So the best thing to do is get up off the concrete. So let's stay off the concrete, y'all, and give our plants nice, healthy air gap. If you have a concrete floor, or if you're gonna be in your garage on a concrete floor, put a nice little air gap in there for your ladies, for your plants. They're gonna enjoy it. You're gonna enjoy it a lot more, because you're not gonna have a headache and chasing your tail trying to figure out what's going on, and showing the rest of the communities trying to get help for what's going on, when you're sitting on a cold concrete floor, which is zapping all the heat out of your plants. Alright, so we got flooring type. What's the next one we need to look at? Well, let's see. Environmental conditions, flooring type. Alright, now we're down to area selection. Area selection. What do I mean by area selection? Well, your area selection is where you're going to take in these environmental conditions and your flooring type. Or if you're growing outside, you want to look for the sunlight. Where is your sun rise and set? Because you want your plant following that path, and you want it to be a clear path to get as much sunlight to sunset. And that's just one of the other little thing I learned when I was younger. You know, if you did not have a clear path from your sunrise to sunset, or a pretty clear path for that sunlight to get in there and work that plant, you're just shooting yourself in the foot. Your plant's gonna die. Especially back 30 years ago out in the woods. The plant was just dead. There was no saving it. Because it's gonna happen on one of them days you can't get to it. And when it happens, there's no saving it. So, and that's why I'm not too shattered over some seeds I lost. It's just part of the game. So, and I did lose 8 seeds out of 10 when I first started. And I really blame that on me more than anything, because from what I understand, greenhouse, they got some good seeds. The one I got growing now, strong as can be. The repeatability from the clones, all my clones look almost identical. I mean, if I pull one clone and swapped it out for another clone, other than a short difference in some of the heights, you would never tell the difference. Never. You'd say that was the same plant between the clones. Okay. So, area selection. What do I mean by area selection? Okay, we checked our environment, indoor, outdoor, what kind of temperature, humidity swings we have, what's your rain environment. Here where I live at, it rains a lot in December, a lot in the winter, not so much during the warmer months, but in the winter we get bombed with rain I'm near a coast. So that's big, huge environmental conditions for myself. My flooring type, like I said, is plywood. Alright. Now, I selected the area in my house that would best eliminate any environmental condition swings. What do I mean by this? Alright. So, what changes in the environment? Well, temperature changes, and it's going to change from day and night, and it's going to be cooler at night, normally, than it is during the day. That's just how the world works. Unless you're around the equator somewhere, which I am not. I'm nowhere near the equator. I wouldn't mind having a trip down there one day, so I can go find me some wild land races. They're still out there. They just have to be found. And that's the only way for it. But that's I'll get on that land race triad another time. So, I picked a room in my house that only has one window and a very small window. Very good air circulation. And I'm indoors. So my air conditioning and heating takes care of my humidity. That's a done deal. I ain't got to worry about my humidity getting thrown off inside my house. So that's, if you're a first time grower, inside might be a way to go to get started. If you're an experienced grower, of course, go ahead and throw something outside. I can't throw nothing outside. All my stuff has to be done inside. So here I am. Alright. So I selected a room in my house that is actually my office. I'll show y'all over here. There's my little tent. That's my little 4x4. But I wanna be. So I'll show you like that. So, area selection. I selected my room. It's in my office. That way I can keep an eye on it. You know, being the first time in all these years, hey, I want to keep an eye on it. I want to make sure that everything I do, trying to get back on this bicycle, I'm doing right. But I already knew going into it, I was going to mess something up. That's just the way of the world, right? If you if you are ready for mistakes, and if you tell yourself, "Hey, I'm gonna do my 100% best and follow this regimen, step by step by step by step, and make my changes as I need to, and try not to make no mistakes." I say try not to make a mistake, because 9 times out of 10 you're gonna make a mistake. I don't know. I haven't since I started back in August, and I gotten in with my good communities. You know, that aren't out there trying to rip people off, and they're out there, folks. They're out there. The ripped offs are out there, and they will steal people's logos. And I'm telling you this as somebody that was coming fresh into the game. But I'm just glad I had some background in my game, because I knew what to look for in my seed. You know, and I went with the name like Kyle Cushman. You know, I've been following Kyle Cushman forever. High Times. That's where I ran into Kyle Cushman's name. High Times. So, and that's just what you gotta do. So I got off on that little tangent there. Oh yeah, area selection. So I got mine in my house. It's up on my second story. Plywood, 3/4 inch plywood floors. Heated. The first floor is heated and cooled. The second floor is heated and cooled on their own thermostats. I have a split system, so it's not the whole house being done at one time. It's only either upstairs or downstairs, or they can both be getting cooled, or one can be getting heated, the other one can be getting cooled, and so it keeps my environment very, very stable in the house. Okay, and I happen to have a really good AC system, heat pump. I got a split unit heat pump system. It's one system that runs 2 different zones. Basically, what it is. All right. So I will tell you, this summer, August, in August, my air went out. 80 degrees in my house. I had to get my inline fan going, get pushing a little harder than what it normally does. My inline fan normally runs on 1 or 2. I have, well, we'll get into all that as we get there. We're on area selection. Let's not go too fast here, Mr. Twisted. All right, area selection. So now you know what to look for in your area selection. You want to make sure you check your environmental conditions. Are you indoor or outdoor? Where's your sunlight at? How are you getting your light? Water, feedings, all that needs to be taken into your environmental conditions. If you live in a drier place, Colorado, the mountains, you're up in the mountains, it's definitely going to be less humid there 90% of the time. You probably feel like you're walking out into a dry paper bag. I don't know, because it's pretty much humid here all the time. But that's just something, things you need to take in, because these environmental conditions are going to lead, and your flooring type are going to lead you to select your area and your other selections down the road. Alright? Alright. So, I think we got that. And that's a huge chunk. We'll take that in. You learned a little bit about me today. And we got our environmental conditions down. We got what to consider when you, on your flooring type. Please stay off the concrete. If you have to be on a concrete floor, get a pallet or get 2 pallets. How many you ever need to get your stuff up off the floor? And if you got a room that you're doing, if you got a room that you have set up to do a whole room grow in, and not a tent, but it's the actual room itself, and you can't afford tables, and you're on concrete, and you can't afford them flood drain tables, hey, pallet and plywood, they do wonders. And then you have some pallets and plywood that you can break down and build other stuff with as you need it, and as you get off that concrete, and as you progress as a grower. All right. So I just want to thank everybody for joining me on this episode. Our next one, we'll be breaking down into equipment. Now that we got these 3 target and what I consider the 3 most important things to take into account before even ordering any seed, before doing anything. Make you a list. That's number 4. I should make that number 1, but I'm gonna make it number 4. Make a list. Like Santa is coming to town. That's right. Make a list. If you don't make a list, you're messing up. You need to make some notes, keep a notebook, a whiteboard, a little clipboard with a paper on it, with some papers on it that you can fill out day to day. But you need to have a way of taking notes, so that way when something goes wrong, you can look back and see what you did, because you're not going to remember. And you're not going to want to look through the 1,000 pictures on your phone trying to find pictures. The easiest, best, and quickest way to diagnose your plant is with your notes. So, you got to make that list like Santa Claus is coming to town. Make notes. Keep track of what you feed. Keep track of what you sing to your ladies. Keep track of the music you play to them. Because you never know. Any of that stuff could have a result. It's been proven in the scientific communities, everything radiates at a certain frequency. So you may find that Buddha Bud frequency, and then you have something that you can spread out through the community to help everybody else come along. And that's the one thing this plant has going for it that no other plant on this earth has, is that the community that comes together around this plant to enjoy this plant for the medicine that it brings, for the relief that it can give, and for the things it can do. Now, I can get started on the government. We'll leave that to another time. I'm going to leave it here for the night. Hey, I'm glad I woke up and can do this for y'all. Y'all stay peace. Good vibes out there, everybody. I love y'all. Tune family. Let's make it strong. Let's take over all the platforms. If you need some good dank genetics, I'm going to put a shameless plug out to my Devil Seed Club. Them Devil Seeds, if you ain't found them, you need to check them out. All right. Y'all have a good one. Until next time.